Hey guys, as always, thanks for tuning in. Jay Helmsing here. Today we're going to talk about the Croatian sensation Springfield XDM. Now this is going to be the 3.8 model with the compact size slide. However, it is the full size grip on this one. It's not the shorter compact model that's got a much shorter grip than this. So I'm going to talk about some things that are common throughout the entire XDM family. So this is going to be kind of indicative of the entire line. I've had several requests to do an XD video and give you a little bit of my background with the XD family. I first saw the HS2000 when it came out. It was an imported gun, obviously from Croatia, and I was really impressed with the gun. I really liked how it looked. I liked the industrial style of it. I liked how everything felt overbuilt on it. However, it being kind of a one-off, foreign gun, I didn't purchase it. I didn't buy into it. So later on, Springfield licensed that model gun, which has now become the XD family of guns, and they're still made in Croatia. So I'd say they're still made in the same place, same factory and everything, with Springfield's backing at this time. But I've seen them. I've shot them over the years. For whatever reason, I just have never been a real big XDM fanboy or XD fanboy or anything. And these guns have like a cult following. The people that like them really, really like them. And some people just don't like them. And I would consider myself one of the few that's kind of neutral on it. I think they're very good guns. I'm very impressed with the gun. However, I just haven't invested a lot of time and money into the platform itself. So, take it for what it's worth. Obviously, I recommend everybody watch as many reviews as you can and just take the little bits that work for you. And, nobody knows everything and nobody's the end-all be-all of everything. But let me go into this in a little bit more depth. So we'll start top to bottom like usual. The sights on this are really impressive. These are the fiber optic sights. It's got a nice bright red, it's actually large size fiber optic in there. I don't think that this is standard on them. I have seen some with the contrast sights, but I do know that several of them do have this fiber optic sight there, so I'm not sure if it's a, I know it's not rare, but I don't know if it's a special option or something like that you can get on these. But anyway, these sights are really, really good, and they're good to the point where I don't see myself replacing them. So I'm not sure who makes these for XDM or for XD or Springfield, or if they make them themselves. But 2 thumbs up on the sights. They provide a really nice, crisp, almost target-like picture. If you'll notice, this rear sight here does have it is a serrated sight on the rear, and it's also slanted to kind of avoid a little bit of glare. It does have these white dots in there from the factory, and I've just blacked those out like I do on all my sights there. I just prefer a dark rear sight. Very nice, if you see the angles there, very steep angles like you'd have from a target sight. The front sight is very easy to pick up. It's got a very large fiber optic in there, and it's easy to see. Also, something I like about this front sight is how shrouded that fiber optic is. So if I can get it to focus in there, you can see it just kind of sits down inside the sight mount just a little bit more than you'd get from like a target sight or something like that. So that to me is good for durability, and it's probably one of the more durable fiber optics out there because of that. The trade-off for that's going to be it's not exposed to as much light as some of the more target-oriented models are, but it kind of makes up for it with a large diameter of the pipette in there for the fiber optic. So pretty bright, it's easy to pick up, and like I say, for factory sights, you're not going to find too much better out there than this. So, thumbs up on the sights. The only thing I don't really care for is the sight picture is just a little bit tight for me. The rear is just a little bit narrow. I prefer to see a little bit wider rear notch, but it's just mostly just preference. And I believe on the full-size models, it wouldn't be as pronounced. This obviously being a shorter slide with a shorter sight radius, you're going to have more of that occurring where you have less light being seen because, they're closer together, obviously. So just something to think about. Probably on the longer slide models, that's really not even going to be an issue. But, it's a little bit tight of a sight picture in there, more tight than I like. But some people like a tighter sight picture like that. So to each their own, right? These are also dovetailed front and rear, so you can adjust those front and rear. So that's also kind of a nice little feature there. Also on the top here, we'll talk about this. I'm going to kind of manually pop it up here. This right here is going to be your loaded chamber indicator. There's no like red flag or anything obnoxious on there, but it does do a pretty good job of letting you know when you have a loaded chamber, and it's obviously very tactile as it raises up there. You can feel it with your hand. Moving on, the serrations on this slide, the cocking serrations are very, very nicely done. So as you can tell, they're very large. They also continue on up to the top of the curve here, which is kind of nice too. You'll see some guns that just kind of stops as the gun starts, as the slide starts to round up here, and it makes it a little bit difficult to get a good purchase on it. With this, you know, these serrations kind of continuing further that way, they're really, really easy to grasp. And obviously you can see how they're cut, very deep, very large, and you know, no problem at all operating either the front or the rear serrations on this. They also have a chevron pattern, which kind of almost like the fish gills on the Glock RTF models. It just kind of grabs your skin and really gives you a really nice purchase there. So again, cocking serrations, 2 thumbs up on that. Good job there for Springfield and the XD clan. Talking next about this little loaded chamber indicator, correction, the cock striker indicator that's on the rear of the gun here. You see this also on the VP9 and some other European model guns. It's a nice feature to have, and kind of the way I see this gun is like it takes everything that Glock is, this whole striker polymer gun nuance we have, and it adds little features here and there to kind of put it over the top as far as you know, being a feature-packed gun. This would be one of those things there. It's not anything necessary. I've never looked at a gun and been like, man, if it only had a cock striker indicator, you know, it'd be the perfect gun. I don't really see a whole lot of point in it. You know, if it's loaded, your striker's got to be cocked, or you have a really, really big malfunction with the gun. But it is something, you know, it's a nice little add-on there. I don't see it getting in the way or being anything obnoxious, so I wouldn't buy it because it's got this, but, you know, I'm not going to knock it because it's on there either. So, again, a nice little feature that's just kind of added onto this gun. The controls in general on the gun are very nicely thought out. So I'll show you guys this opposite side here. We have, obviously, the slide stop, slide release, whatever you want to do. This works really well both ways, as a slide stop and a slide release, and it's also got this kind of contouring here along with the melt. If you see, it's very, very streamlined, but it's got this kind of contour here, and what I find that does, it allows a place for my palm to sit as I go thumbs forward, and it keeps me from kind of riding this like I would on some other models. So it's nicely out of the way in my grip, and just nicely done overall. Very easy to actuate, and a very positive feel on this. You got your takedown lever here, which is going to be opposite as opposed to many other takedown levers of the same style. Instead of rotating down, this one rotates upward in this manner here when you take it down. And at first I thought, that's really weird. Why would they do that? It's, you know, just to be different, or what's going on there. But then I kind of found something neat. If you use a thumbs forward grip like I do, your thumb is going to rest basically right over the top of that. And instead of, you know, some of them where they rotate down, you know, kind of being worried that you're going to flick that down under firing or something, this is in the lock position as you're pushing down on it. So, you know, to release the slide, it's got to rotate up. So you can really put some force on that and use that to kind of park your non-dominant hand, or I should just say left side thumb, as you're kind of muscling the muzzle around. So that's kind of a neat little thing. I'm not so sure it was built with that in mind, but it is something that's very functional as far as you know, how this rotates up instead of down. So something else to consider there. We'll talk next about this grip safety here, and this is a, you know, point of much debate. Some people like them, some people hate them. I find most people that hate them have never used them. As with most anything else, you know, your biggest haters are the ones that have never used it, and they're just kind of going off theory or what they hear, or, you know, just their own thoughts or whatever. But in actual firing conditions, this has been just completely sublime. I don't feel it back there. I don't have to think about actuating it, and it's never you know, been something that has kept me from firing the gun. Now, I don't have a lot of rounds in this. I definitely don't have enough rounds to do a shooting impressions video, but you know, as I get a normal grip on the gun, I don't feel it. It just kind of drops out of the way, and you know, I don't have to get a really, really stiff master grip and kind of really worry about actuating that to keep it out of the way. And like I was talking a little bit earlier about the features of this gun, that's kind of one of those little add-on bonuses. Do you need it? No, obviously not. But could it be helpful? Possibly, right? So, you know, situations where this may be helpful, you see some people, I've seen negligent discharges with people just dropping loaded guns, or, you know, fumbling loaded guns, and they'll grab for them like you would anything else. It's kind of a natural reaction. You grab for something that's falling to try to keep it from falling. If you do that with a loaded gun, it doesn't have a whole lot of safeties on it, or external safeties, I should say, you got a really good chance of grabbing the gun and also getting your finger in this trigger guard here and having negligent discharge. This is probably going to prevent that, because I don't know, I mean, maybe it would happen, but it'd be pretty hard to get a full master grip as something's falling and discharge it like that. So probably pretty good in that aspect there. Also something, you know, if you have little kids around the house, obviously you got to be really careful about where you put your firearms and what firearms are loaded and how you keep those. And you know, it's your responsibility to keep them safe and locked and whatever else. However, if you know, you kind of neglect to do that, or if kids are extra curious and they happen to find where you keep your loaded guns, this may save a life. I mean, because I think a lot of small hands would have a really small hands, like kid hands, would have a really hard time getting this to manipulate, getting this to actuate, you know, getting a full grip on a gun. You don't see too many young kids that are able to do that. You know, could they put a thumb on there and work it? Sure, it's not foolproof or anything by any stretch. But, you know, the outside chance, you know, this may just kind of prevent the random fumbling and playing and messing that might send one of these rounds out of here if you have a loaded gun and a little kid finds it. You know, who knows? But those are just two things I kind of thought of when I was thinking about the functionality of this. And, you know, it's kind of neat to have that on there. It doesn't bother me. It's, again, not something I'd go out and look for, but it's just another feature that's packed into this gun here. So another pretty cool thing in my opinion. And again, I've never had any issues with it not doing what it's supposed to do. I will say on that aspect there that the only thing it's takes a little bit getting used to is if you go to manipulate the slide, it's not going to work unless you have a grip on it and you're activating this rear grip safety here. Once you get a normal grip on there, you can do that as well. And again, maybe it's going to be helpful in keeping kids from loading the gun or something like that. So I'm just not going to knock it. It's just something you got to know when you go to manipulate this gun, that you got to have a grip up there. And you can be pretty ugly with your grip. You don't have to have a really tight grip or anything. You just have to kind of have your hand back there and it'll do its job. So that's pretty much my take on that grip safety there. The grip itself is very nicely contoured. It's very ergonomic. It does have these really large, like industrial size lugs here as part of the XDM package, which is a kind of different take. You know, you see a lot of people doing the kind of small stippling and things like that on the grip, or the really aggressive stippling and stuff. Now, these are not really aggressive in, you know, as far as being sharp or anything. They're kind of rounded, and the polymer in general is more of like a rubbery plastic polymer. It's not that really sharp, kind of plasticky, brittle feeling polymer. It's more of a rubber type polymer. And you know, along with these lugs here, they do a really nice job just kind of securing the gun in your hand, keep it from moving and so forth. And I think they'd be really functional. You know, they're not going to load up with grime and stuff like some of the more small profile, you know, texturing and stuff that you have out there. So again, I think a different way of going about it, but also a very highly effective way there. So I would just recommend you guys try this out. You know, if you never had one, never held it in your hands, pretty nice feeling grip and very secure and solid without being abrasive. So again, really nice feature of the gun there. The texturing, every surface on this grip is textured. So even like the flat stuff up here, as you can see, there's a little bit of texture on there. Nothing aggressive, but it does provide a little bit of friction, which is kind of neat because some of the guns out there are just completely slick on the areas that don't have the purposeful grip area. So I'm not sure why they do that, but on this gun, pretty much anywhere you grab, you're going to have a little bit of traction. So again, nicely done in the grip department. Now, we're going to talk next about what I consider to be the hallmark feature of this gun. But before we do so, of notable point of interest here is going to be the ambidextrous mag release. And this is probably the best working ambidextrous mag release that I've used. There's not a whole lot of fanfare or funk with it. There's not any weird glitchiness. One side doesn't work better than the other. It just seems to be a really nice, heavy-duty, well thought out mag release there. So it is ambi, and I believe on all the XD models they have this same ambi mag release there, and I've never heard of any issues with it. So again, another bonus. You're not going to see that on a lot of guns that have a full ambi mag release there. Now obviously the whole gun isn't ambi, but something nice, especially if you're a left-handed shooter. Now the hallmark I was talking about of this gun, if you notice, this thing kind of looks like a Louisville Slugger. In other words, it's you know, just as long in the grip area as it is in the slide area pretty much. And the reason for that is these bad boys right here hold 19 rounds of 9mm. So 19 rounds. There's nothing out there that's going to compete with that from the factory. So you know, the only other one that I know of that does that is the CZ-P09, and of course that's a hammer fire gun, and it is longer. It's going to be a lot more cumbersome to carry than this will. But 19 rounds of firepower, and that to me makes this a really intriguing gun, and a really should get a lot of looks from people who are just thinking about getting a gun for home defense, or that nightstand gun. It's small enough you can put it there on your nightstand, and you don't have to worry about having a bunch of mags laying around or anything, because you've got basically 20 rounds on tap. And in my opinion, in my experience, that's going to be a really important factor in any gunfight, is how long you can stay in it, and how long you can stay in it without having to reload, having to find cover, having to think about the mechanics of getting that second mag or that third mag in there. If you're able to stay in the fight, that's what you want, right? So a lot of people, have this misconception: I'm going to carry this single stack, whatever. Oh, 8 rounds of 9mm is fine. You should really watch some videos of people receiving 8mm bullets, or 9mm bullets, I should say. Some people just seem to soak them up, and it's the same with any caliber. I'm just saying a handgun round in general, 40, 45, whatever. Some people can soak those rounds up. And I don't mean to say that in a gruesome way or anything, but if you go out and you think that 6 rounds is going to do it for basically any encounter you're in, you're sadly mistaken. Now, 20 rounds probably is going to be overkill for a single attacker or something like that, but in my opinion, you really can never have too much on your side, right? So just something to think about. Bullets are not the magic end-all be-all. They're not just going to drop your threat instantly. In most cases, you're still going to have a threat coming at you, coming after you, and it's got to be a deadly threat for you to engage in the first place. So that the capability, the ability to be able to put multiple rounds on that target is going to be critical in most of your fatal encounter situations. So something else to think about, and for that reason alone, I really consider this to be a very very unique and a very sought after a gun out there, because not too many manufacturers are able to do that. Now, with that in mind, some people are going to say, well, you can always add the extensions, or you can always do whatever, right? And some degree that's true, but my take on that is, with the extensions and whatever else you're adding onto these magazines, you're always inducing another level, another possible failure point, right? So the spring might be too weak at that point. Anything can happen when you start adding the extensions on. Fine for competition, probably not something I'd want to defend my life with. Nothing against those that do, but I think a full-size, factory magazine that's been tested and tested and tested and is built for the gun to take is probably the way to go. Even if you compare like the factory mags, you got to put the little the grip extension or whatever on. Those, in my opinion, they don't seem to work super well. I always end up getting my fingers pinched in there as the gun cycles or whatever else. So, I'm not going to ramble on about it, but 19 rounds in this grip here, pretty awesome in my opinion, and definitely something worth a look. As far as taking the gun down and kind of going over some of the other features of it, it's got a nice standoff capability up here. If you notice in the front where the guide rod goes, nice flat area. And again, I've spoken about standoff capability before, but basically the ability to keep that muzzle off your target at close range so that the gun's still going to function and cycle. Break this down really quickly, and again, as you notice, I'm flipping this up as opposed to the other ones. On the XDM, you don't have to pull the trigger, so you release it and it slides right off. Inside here, you got a double captive recoil spring. This is all metal here, all steel for those of you who don't like the polymer in there. Everything in this gun, if you kind of look in there at the guts of it, it's just way overbuilt. And this slide is a heavy slide, and there's just a lot of metal left over. And when you feel this gun, it just feels like an industrial piece of machinery almost. It's just really well built, really solid. If you look at the chamber, how thick it is on these guns, is a fully supported chamber. It's got a factory polished feed ramp there, and obviously this is supposed to be a match grade barrel. Who decides what match grade is, I don't know. But, probably a little more accurate than your normal XD barrels or anything like that. It's supposed to be a little more precise, but there's no mandatory requirements for match grade. But it is a nice barrel, like I say, very thick chamber here, fully supported. If you look at the end, there's a slight bushing built into the barrel, which kind of helps in that front end lockup as the gun goes back into battery. So very nicely done, very nicely done. And that's kind of what I've noticed looking at this gun. I can't find any place where they really just didn't do something effectively, or just kind of drop the ball, right? So everything in here looks pretty nice. Going down to the trigger assembly, this is what it looks like looking down from the top. Get some nice long slide rails here, front and rear, and everything. Like I say, just that, look at that locking block in there, just massive. So I feel like it's really durable gun, and it's going to be a really reliable gun. Not a whole lot of small parts that I can see. There's a big old sear down in there. Everything's just kind of overbuilt. So really nice gun to handle, and I believe it's going to be a really durable gun as well. You don't see too many of these failing or hear too many people you know, talk about massive recalls or anything with XD or XDMs or anything like that. So pretty cool gun. Put this back together. We'll talk a little bit next about the trigger itself. And before we move on there, I want you to take a look at this here. This magwell is just phenomenal. It's pushed out almost as far as it can go, and it's got a full bevel all the way around it, and it's, of course, with these huge magazines here, it's just so easy to load. So another, you know, 2 thumbs way up on paying attention to that. So very cool, very fast to load, no crazy little holes back here or anything to keep it from loading effectively. So pretty cool. Let's take a look next at the trigger. So again, this has been checked clear. You guys just saw, just broke it down completely. You do have a blade on there like you do have on some other striker fire guns. This one drops completely out of the way, so nice to see there. You're gonna have, do it with this finger here so you guys can see it, a little bit of slack, and it's gonna come back to a wall. And this is a really nice, really clean in here. Comes back to a wall. Give it just a little bit more, and it's gonna come through that wall, and it's gonna have just a little bit of resistance, and all of a sudden it's going to break. And where it breaks is almost all the way back there, as far back as it can go. So show it to you again. And if you can see, I'm manually holding this down so it'll work. But got a wall there coming back through maybe 1 millimeter or 2, and then it's going to break almost all the way back there. As far as reset, reset I find to be just a hair long. So break it, and as you guys can see, I'm going to have to walk it out right about here. Come back into that wall, push it through a few more millimeters, bang, there we go again. So really nice, functional, usable trigger. Don't feel any friction or anything in there, any creep, anything like that. So I feel like this is going to be a gun that it is, you know, capable of being shot very fast and very well. The reset on it is just a little bit long for my taste, but nothing crazy, you know, nothing like an obnoxiously long reset, just a little bit long, take a little getting used to, but it is very tactile. I can feel it in that trigger, and I can hear it as it resets. So another very cool feature. We're just going to round this out. Does have the interchangeable back straps here, and as you can see, it goes right in here. There's a pin you drive out, and they just kind of pop in. This is of the style, probably because of this back strap here, where you're working basically this palm swell area, making it bigger or smaller. And I find in those guns, it doesn't really matter how big your hands are. It's kind of up to the feel you want. If you're more of a 1911 straight up and down guy, try the smaller back strap. If you want more of an angle to it, like a Glock, you know, try these larger back straps, and it's going to push this swell out here, which is going to give you kind of a different angle, a different grip as you come up into it. So other than that, you know, 2 thumbs way up on the gun. I really do like it. It feels good in hand. It's a tad heavy, comparatively speaking, to other guns out there, but I feel like it's overbuilt, and that's kind of why it is heavy. So I don't have too many criticisms or knocks of it on it, aside from the weight. And you know, if you're gonna have a trade-off, you know, if you want a really light gun, it's gonna have a lot of recoil. If you get a little bit heavier gun, it's gonna quell the recoil a little bit. And if you're carrying around 20 rounds, you're probably not too worried about weight anyway, right? So just some things to think about. I appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll have the shooting impressions of this gun here shortly. And again, thanks for the likes, the subscribes, the suggestions, and all that love out there. Just keep it coming, or I'll keep coming at you guys with reviews. I appreciate it. Take care.